This is Mr. Reier's version of the complete works of William Shakespeare. So we're going to start off with the tragedies, move on to the histories, and then go into the comedies. So first one up, Antony and Cleopatra. We met these individuals in chapter 4. Long story short, who wins in the end? Who becomes the emperor of the Roman Empire? That would be Octavian. Octavian wins, Antony and Cleopatra lose, and they both die as a result of their attempts of suicide. Hamlet, the most famous of William Shakespeare's plays. Prince Hamlet of Denmark suspects that his uncle murdered Hamlet's father. To make matters more complicated, his uncle married his widow mother. Through a lot of complicated scheming and emotional angst, he figures out that it was his uncle and plans on killing him, but in the end, a lot of people are dead. Shakespeare's most famous tragedy. Next, we come to Coriolanus. This is also from the time period of Rome. A Roman general named Coriolanus gets banished from Rome. He leads an army from Rome's rivals in order to take revenge. But at the last minute, he's convinced to not take revenge on Rome, and Rome's rivals kill him because they take that as a betrayal. Next, Julius Caesar. We met him in chapter 4. We know that he comes down with the fatal case of getting stabbed to death. But Julius Caesar is not the main character. It's mostly about Brutus and Cassius, who betrayed Julius Caesar, and it's also about the third triumvirate, the last triumvirate, who team up to take down Caesar's murderers. King Lear is about a mythical king of England's past from long ago. King Lear decides to divide up his kingdom amongst his 3 daughters, depending on who loves him the most. There are 2 daughters who flatter him, and so he splits his kingdom between the 2. There's 1 daughter who refuses to flatter him, so he gives her nothing. And it takes a lot of pain and losing his kingdom to realize that the daughter who didn't flatter him loved him the most. A lot of pain is had to learn that lesson. Next, we come to Macbeth, another very famous play of William Shakespeare. This takes place in Scotland. It's called the Scottish play. Macbeth kills his king and takes his job, but there is a prophecy from 3 witches that predict that someone is going to replace him. Macbeth tries to avoid fulfilling this prophecy, but the steps he takes accidentally fulfill the prophecy, and someone kills him and replaces him. A very violent play. Next we come to Othello. I've actually been in the ensemble of this one. There's 2 characters, Iago, the villain, and Othello, technically the protagonist, although Iago has most of the lines in this play. Iago tries and succeeds in convincing Othello that his wife is cheating on him. Othello kills his wife, does a lot of other bad things, gets in trouble. Most people are dead in the end, or if not, imprisoned or tortured or very seriously maimed. A very sad story. Troilus and Cressida, I don't have this one. In the later years of the Trojan War, Troilus, a son of Priam, the king of Troy, loves Cressida, who unintentionally becomes a prisoner of war. Troilus tries to save Cressida. All the while, the Greeks are trying to stop Achilles from being angry, and Hector dies in the end. Romeo and Juliet. It's not a romantic story, it's actually a tragedy. There are 2 families who hate each other. One member from one family is Romeo, another from another family is Juliet. They fall in love, even though they're not allowed to, and it takes the death of Romeo and Juliet for these 2 families to reconcile. Titus Andronicus, the most bloody of all of Shakespeare's play. At least 3 hands get cut off in this book, throats are slit, heads might be cut off, and people get baked into pies and served into their relatives. The most bloody of Shakespeare's plays, but at the very least, at the end, everyone who deserves to die is at least dead. Timon of Athens. Timon gets expelled from Athens, hates the world, finds a gold mine, plans on taking his revenge on Athens, but he dies in the wilderness before he can do anything about it. Now we come to the histories. One of the earliest is King John. I don't have that one, but here's the story of King John. No one likes him. The end. Next we come to the story of Edward III. Edward wants Scotland. He does not get Scotland. Edward III wants France. He gets some of France. The end. Then we come to the first set of four, the first Henriad, talking about Richard II. Richard II is not the best king. He gets fired by Henry IV. The end. Henry IV is now king. His son, Prince Hal, has some bad influences. His friends aren't the best influence on him, and they're worried about him. The end. Henry IV, Part 2. Henry IV dies. Henry V grows up and becomes mature. The end. Henry V. Henry V wins France. The end. Henry VI, Part 1. Henry VI starts to lose France, then starts to lose his mind. The Yorks fight the Lancasters, and Joan of Arc starts to win France. Henry VI, Part 2. I don't actually have this one. The Yorks and Lancasters are fighting even more. Edward IV takes London, but his position is not secured. The end. And Henry VI, Part 3. The War of the Roses is getting out of hand. Lots of people are killing each other. There are a lot of battles in this play. Henry VI retakes London from Edward IV. Then Edward IV retakes London from Henry VI. Henry VI loses, but Edward IV's dynasty is not secure. The end. And this 8-play long story comes to an end in Richard III, who is not the best king. Nobody likes Richard III. Henry VII, also known as Henry Tudor, replaces him. Henry Tudor wins. The end. We also have a play about Henry VIII. Henry VIII wants a divorce. The Pope won't give it to him. So he sets up his own church. The end. Now we come to the comedies. Most of these are pretty similar. As You Like It. All the characters wear disguises and become engaged to each other. The end. All's Well That Ends Well. A woman tricks a man into marrying him. Tricks a man into marrying her. The end. A Comedy of Errors. There's a lot of mistakes that people make in this play. Lots of slapstick, lots of word puns, and lots of mistaken identities. In fact, there are 2 sets of identical twins that get separated at birth. It's funny. The end. Cymbeline. Cymbeline is a king. His daughter leaves, goes undercover. The mean people get punished, and it ends with a wedding. Love's Labour's Lost. The King of Navarre and his 3 best friends decide to swear off the company of women for 3 years. Good luck with that. Doesn't go as they plan. The end. Measure for Measure. A duke puts on a disguise and pretends to leave home in order to spy on the person who's supposed to take over his job next. He wants to see if his successor is corrupt. Spoiler alert, his successor is corrupt, and so he has to find a new guy. The end. The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice gets into trouble, but gets saved by a loophole in the end. The end. The Merry Wives of Windsor. The Merry Wives of Windsor play tricks on their husband. The end. Pericles, Prince of Tyre. To win the hand of the princess, Pericles must answer a riddle. Goddess Diana solves all of the problems at the very end. The end. 2 Gentlemen of Verona. A woman goes in disguise to see if her suitor is worthy. Turns out he is. The end. 2 Noble Kinsmen. There's a trial by combat. The hero wins, but dies in an accident in the very last scene, and someone else has to marry his fiancée. The end. A Midsummer Night's Dream. The most famous of Shakespeare's comedies. A fairy accidentally swaps love potions with the wrong people and creates the weirdest love quadrangle that you've ever seen. Shenanigans ensues. It's funny. The end. Much Ado About Nothing. Nothing in this case means rumors. An engagement is broken off because of rumors that are not true. It takes them the whole play to realize that the two people should talk to each other like normal people and figure out that the rumors were not true. The end. The Tempest. A storm shipwrecks a bunch of people on an island, and a demigod causes shenanigans amongst those who are shipwrecked. It's funny. The end. The Taming of the Shrew. A bunch of men convince a woman to marry one of them. It's apparently funny. The end. Twelfth Night. More sets of identical twins and mistaken identities. This ends in a wedding. Multiple weddings, actually. The end. The Winter's Tale. It has a dark opening, but there's a deus ex machina at the end, and it pretty much just ends with a wedding. It's funny. The end. And then we have Shakespeare's sonnets, the most famous of which starts with, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" He also wrote other narrative poems. The end.